There is a specific moment that happens when you're trying to get good at something new. You've watched the videos, you've read the thing, you feel like you understand it. And then you try to actually do it, and it's immediately clear that understanding something and being able to do something are two completely different countries that have never met and don't share a language. This moment is where most people quit, not because they're not capable, because nobody told them this moment was coming, and so when it arrives, they assume it means they're bad at the thing instead of what it actually means, which is that they've just crossed the border from knowing into learning, and learning is supposed to feel exactly like this. Here's the part nobody tells you. Getting good at anything has two completely separate phases, and most people only know about one of them. Phase 1 is acquiring information, watching the tutorial, reading the guide, understanding the concept. This phase feels good. It feels like progress because in some ways it is progress. Your brain is collecting the map. The problem is that having a map is not the same thing as knowing how to walk. Phase 2 is acquiring the skill, actually doing the thing, badly, repeatedly, until your hands know what your brain already knew. And this phase feels terrible, which is exactly why most people skip it by watching another tutorial instead. The gap between phase 1 and phase 2 is where potential goes to die. It has a name. It's called the Valley of Awkwardness, and everyone who has ever gotten good at anything has had to walk through it. It's the period where you know enough to know that what you're producing is bad, but you don't yet have the ability to make it good. This is the most dangerous place to be because it's the place that most accurately simulates failure without actually being failure. It's just the middle. And the middle always looks like failure from the inside. The only way through the valley is volume, not quality, volume. You have to do the thing badly enough times that your brain stops treating it as a threat and starts treating it as a pattern it can automate. This is how every skill works at the level of actual brain mechanics. The first few times you do something, your brain is working incredibly hard to process it consciously. Every little decision is being made manually. It's exhausting and slow and feels unnatural because it is unnatural. Your brain hasn't built the pathway yet, but every repetition lays a little more of the road. And at some point, enough road exists that your brain stops driving manually and switches to something closer to autopilot. This is what skill actually feels like, not talent, infrastructure. So the practical question is, how do you get the volume in without quitting in the valley? The first thing is to detach your identity from your output during this phase. Whatever you're making right now is not a reflection of your ceiling. It's a reflection of how many repetitions you've done so far. A bad first attempt doesn't mean you're bad at the thing. It means you've done it once. These are not the same statement. The person who keeps going after a bad first attempt and the person who quits after a bad first attempt don't have different amounts of talent. They have different relationships with temporary discomfort. The second thing is to compress your feedback loops. The fastest learners are not the ones who practice the most hours. They're the ones who get the most feedback per hour. If you practice something for 2 hours and no one tells you what you're doing wrong, you've just reinforced whatever habits you already had, good or bad. But if you practice for 30 minutes and then immediately review what you did, compare it to what good looks like, identify one specific thing that's off, fix just that one thing, and go again, that loop will get you further in 30 minutes than 2 hours of unreviewed practice. Find the feedback, watch yourself back, compare your output to someone further along, get a real person to look at it, do something to close the loop faster. The third thing is to practice at the edge of your ability, not inside your comfort zone. There's a difference between practicing something you can already do and practicing something you can almost do. One feels smooth and satisfying and produces almost zero growth. The other feels uncomfortable and frustrating and produces almost all the growth. The uncomfortable version has a name too. It's called deliberate practice. And the reason most people don't do it is because it requires you to spend most of your practice time feeling like you're failing, which you are, just productively. The fourth thing is the most important and the most ignored. Rest is part of the skill acquisition process, not a break from it. Actual skill consolidation happens during sleep. The pathways your brain started building during practice get reinforced and organized while you're unconscious, which means the person who practices for 1 hour and sleeps 8 hours will often outperform the person who practices for 4 hours and sleeps 5. This is not an excuse to practice less. It's an argument for treating sleep as a training tool the same way you treat the practice itself. So here is what getting good at anything actually looks like when you compress it into the honest version. You learn the concept. You try it and it's bad. You do it again. Still bad, but slightly less bad. You identify specifically what's wrong and fix just that. You repeat this until the bad becomes mediocre and the mediocre becomes okay, and the okay eventually becomes something you'd actually show someone else. And somewhere in that process, without a single dramatic breakthrough moment, you became good at the thing. There is no shortcut through the valley. But knowing the valley exists makes it significantly less likely that you'll mistake it for a dead end. Anyway, I'm collecting donations in the form of subscribes to fund the next video.